Hello, I'm Greg Essensa. I'm the Chief Electoral Officer for the Province of Ontario. I want to welcome you to the Elections Ontario team. Whether you are working for us for a day, a month, or longer, I want you to understand how important you are to the voting process in Ontario. Ontario is made up of different cultures, different languages, different ages, and different experiences. Our job is to serve the needs of all electors in a fair and respectful manner. The role of customer service in the voting process has become even more important with the introduction of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act 2005 and the recent amendments to the Elections Act. These changes to the laws have been put in place to remove barriers to those individuals with disabilities living in our communities. For the Elections Ontario team, which you are now a part of, this means we need to focus on the needs of the elector. We need to make their experience as easy and accessible as possible. We need to put the elector first. It is our commitment, it is our responsibility. Welcome to the Elections Ontario team. We make voting easy.
Over 1.8 million Ontarians are living with a disability, and that number is growing as our province's population ages. This means that in a line of 100 people waiting to vote on Election Day, as many as 18 individuals will benefit from your understanding of how to serve the electors of Ontario in an accessible manner. For the purpose of achieving an accessible Ontario, the provincial government enacted the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act in 2005. The Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act is commonly referred to as the AODA. This act incorporates the principles of the Ontario Human Rights Code to address the barriers that people with disabilities sometimes face when attempting to access the opportunities that others take for granted, including access to goods and services. The purpose of the AODA includes the requirement to develop, implement, and enforce accessibility standards in the areas of customer service, employment, information and communication, built environment, and transportation. Together, these standards shape our government's vision of a barrier-free Ontario. The government has committed itself to achieving this vision no later than January 1st, 2025. This means that all Ontarians, regardless of their disability, will have unrestricted access to public and private goods and services without discrimination or disadvantage. By following this training program and approaching each workday at Elections Ontario with this goal in mind, you are helping to pioneer this significant transformation and create a brighter, more inclusive future for all Ontarians. Some approaches to creating an accessible Ontario are easy to identify. For example, providing a ramp will make a building physically accessible. However, the term disability includes far more than physical limitations. The AODA recognizes a broad range of disabilities including hearing, vision, deaf-blindness, mental health, speech, learning, intellectual, and sensory disabilities. Many of these are not at all obvious to onlookers. In fact, at least 95% of disabilities are invisible, and each one requires a tailored response from those providing customer service to the general public. On January 1, 2008, the Government of Ontario passed a new regulation called Accessibility Standards for Customer Service. This regulation was developed to address the way that goods and services are provided to people with disabilities. The Accessibility Standards for Customer Service regulation outlines 5 important steps we must follow in order to provide accessible services to people with a wide range of disabilities, both apparent and invisible. You are receiving this training because of this regulation's first step, which states that organizations like Elections Ontario must provide instructions to all staff on specific topics, including how to interact with people with disabilities in a respectful and dignified way. The second step requires us to assist or make changes in the way we offer services to electors with disabilities, such as providing documents in alternative formats for electors who may be unable to read regular text. The third step tells us that we must have a procedure in place for receiving and processing feedback from electors in a number of ways, including in person, by telephone, or in writing, electronically, or by other reasonable methods. The fourth step requires us to use location signage and online alerts to let the public know when our services or facilities have been unexpectedly disrupted for any reason. Finally, we must have specific policies, practices, and procedures in place that support accessible customer service. This video presentation will address each of these steps in detail, giving you the knowledge and support you need to be part of Ontario's customer service transformation. As employees of Elections Ontario, we all have a responsibility to offer customer service to all Ontarians. To address the barriers facing people with disabilities, our provincial legislators have revised the rules governing election policies and procedures. The Ontario Election Act, for example, has been amended to allow individuals with disabilities to vote with the help of a friend. By learning, practicing, and applying these changes, as well as the principles of the accessibility standards for customer service, you are helping Elections Ontario to achieve accessibility for the electors of Ontario. Following the principles and requirements of the accessibility standards for customer service under the AODA, Elections Ontario has developed a document called Accessible Customer Service Policy. This policy is specific to Elections Ontario and describes procedures and practices that will shape your daily interactions with the public. It provides the foundation of all customer service procedures discussed throughout this presentation. This video, together with your manual, will outline the procedures specific to various types of disabilities. In many important ways, interacting with a person who has a disability is no different from interacting with anyone else. People with disabilities want the same experiences that are available to others: dignity, independence, integration, and equal opportunity.
Dignity.
Independence.
Integration.
And equal opportunity.
It means that you can go to vote like everyone else does, and you can do it independently and not have anyone have to help you with it. Then you feel real dignity because you came in, you did it, and the people helped you, were very respectful of you as a person, and you were able to do that independently, just like everyone else does. It feels great because, especially if you've experienced the other way, the lack of dignity a few times in the past where things were not set up very well and you needed help. You needed someone to actually be in there with you, which to me, that's not very dignifying, to have someone know what you're doing, what you're voting for. So I find the more accessible it gets, the more dignity you have, and the more comfortable you are when you go to do it, because knowing that everyone will have seen video and they will know how to interact and know how to use the technology or the accessible voting tools, then they have a comfortableness with it and you have a comfortableness and you feel that dignity because you've done it in private like everyone else does, and you've been able to do it easily and in an accessible way.
The first step in achieving these 4 standards of customer service is to ask every elector, "May I help you?" When interacting with electors who have a disability, it's important to acknowledge the person first and not the disability. This applies to the language we use and to our behavior. Let's start with language. Rather than using the phrases autistic person or blind person, say the person who has autism or the person who is blind. In these examples, we acknowledge the person first and not their disability, and our behavior should reflect this too. Also, keep in mind that the majority of disabilities are not obvious, and if a person does not have a disability, there is a good chance that they are close to someone who does. The avoidance of slang and the use of appropriate behavior is important to more people than we often realize. Many individuals, for example, live with disabilities such as epilepsy, asthma, HIV/AIDS, or diabetes. While these disabilities likely impact their daily lives, they may not be apparent to onlookers.
Independence means being able to do what you want, when you want, where you want, when you want to do it. Society has a responsibility, communities have a responsibility to facilitate independence for people with disabilities. And that means different things to different people. Different people have different requirements. So depending on the level of ability, the type of disability, there's going to be different requirements and accommodations that need to be made. In a lot of cases, no accommodations are going to be made. But then in other cases, you're going to have to make some significant modifications. I suppose it can be empowering, but that is kind of a shame that somebody feels special when they're able to do what society is able to do. As the public, in the public service, you don't want to have to make things special for people. That's the way it is. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't be something special to allow people with disabilities to take part in their community. It's as important for somebody with a disability as for anybody. I mean, people with disabilities live in our communities, they pay taxes, they go to schools, they use recreation centers, they go to the libraries, they do everything that everybody else in society does. So they have got the right to go out to their voting station and cast their ballot.
When meeting electors with disabilities, you may offer assistance, but always respect their independence.
Hi, may I help you?
Yeah, I need my address, need my card here, need my health card.
Excellent. So you'd like to update your address and you've got your health card and your gas bill? Well, that will do.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, let's go get the form and get you started.
Okay.
All right, come with me.
Sure.
Their way of doing things may not be your way, but it works for them. Remember that the elector you are assisting can make his or her own decisions. Allow each elector the time he or she requires to speak to you or to complete a task.
Hi, may I help you?
Yes, I'm here to vote.
Be patient, speak clearly, and avoid compromising his or her independence by assuming you know the best way to help, or by interrupting or rushing the elector.
When I think about voting, I think that all people with a disability, whether they be blind, deaf, or have a speech impediment or can't walk, I think they should all be allowed to vote.
Hi, may I help you?
I find it difficult to be in crowds, so it's a little overwhelming.
Okay, I completely understand. Would you prefer if I took you off to the side?
Yeah, that would be
All
ideal.
electors have the right to a dignified voting experience regardless of ability, and absolutely no one should feel uncomfortable or disadvantaged for any reason.
People with disabilities want full participation in all aspects of a dynamic and exciting society. Schools, businesses, governments, they all must understand there are many, many barriers that prevent us from having full access to things in everyday life. Equal opportunity to me means that we want to see those barriers brought down so that our disabilities are accommodated. What we'd like to see is that we will be recognized for our abilities and skills and not denied opportunities to access things because of our disabilities. I think when you go to vote, you are exercising your basic fundamental rights in a democratic society. I think it's really important for people with disabilities to understand the issues and be able to go and vote without barriers so they can exercise their fundamental right to vote and make sure that the government they choose represents the values they hold in their heart.
Every elector should have equal opportunity to access our services and to vote in a welcoming, inclusive environment. If an elector is having difficulty getting into a voting location or navigating around one, begin by offering assistance. Be patient and courteous, as some individuals might need a bit more time to reach their destination. If you are offering help to an elector in a wheelchair or scooter, and if you are going to be talking with him or her for a while, consider crouching down so that both of you are at eye level. Eye contact is also important when speaking to electors with hearing disabilities. Look directly at the person, speak clearly, and do not speak quickly. Make certain that you do not cover your mouth when speaking, since some people with hearing disabilities read lips. You also never know what environmental triggers might be affecting individuals with invisible disabilities, such as those who are sensitive to certain smells, including perfumes and colognes. Everyone has the right to a clean, scent-free environment. In every case, take the time to listen to an elector's questions and provide appropriate answers. Every elector, whether he or she has a disability or not, will benefit from your patience and excellent customer service.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
For some people with disabilities, an assistive device, service animal, or support person may be essential. When you meet someone who uses these forms of assistance, you can feel confident if you follow a few simple rules. Do not touch, move, or manipulate an assistive device without the owner's permission, and never distract or feed a service animal. You should also be prepared to meet electors with service animals. Service animals provide a wide range of assistance to people with disabilities and are important to their safety and personal comfort. Guide dogs are the most common example of a service animal, although there are other types of service animals that you may not be familiar with, such as rats, cats, or birds. These animals must be allowed to accompany an elector wherever the public is allowed to go. If it is not obvious that an animal is a service animal, you may ask to see a letter signed by a physician or nurse. Always resist the temptation to interact with a service animal by speaking to, touching, or otherwise distracting a service animal. You could be putting its owner at risk. These are working animals, and breaking their concentration can reduce their efficiency.
Hi, may I help you?
I'm here to vote.
Excellent. How may I assist you? Would you like to take my arm?
Well, I could take your arm, but since it's quiet, perhaps you could give me directions and my dog will follow you.
Absolutely. All right. If you want to follow me, we'll take 4 steps.
Oh yeah, forward. Good girl.
And left.
Left, Tootie.
And here's the deputy returning officer's table, and they will be more than happy to help you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
All right.
When escorting someone with a guide dog, offer them your assistance. Some electors with disabilities have a support person to assist them with daily activities. Regardless of the support person's role, always address the elector directly. Follow the procedure for allowing a support person to remain with an elector throughout the voting process.
Hello, may I help you?
Hi, yes, I'm here to vote, and this is my wife. I'll need her assistance.
Certainly. I'm just going to have to ask both of you to take the oral oath of affirmation. Is that okay?
Sure.
Excellent.
A support person can only aid one elector at any voting location, except in hospitals, nursing homes, psychiatric facilities, or similar facilities where several individuals may depend on a single staff person. Assistive devices, service animals, and support persons provide assistance to people with disabilities. Elections Ontario also offers services and tools to help electors with their voting experience. Many of the devices provided are meant to increase mobility. Where applicable, ensure that ramps and doors are functional and free of obstacles. Place directional signage in appropriate locations to help electors find their way around the voting location. Some types of devices available to electors are meant to improve communication. Before Election Day, an elector can request to have support from a sign language interpreter while visiting the voting location.
Perfect. Do you actually have a piece of ID as well, Mr. Smith? That's excellent. Perfect. Just follow me. John, how you doing? This is Tony. Tony, John will help you out with the voting process, okay? Thanks, John.
Okay.
This service must be prearranged by the elector. As with any other situation involving a support person, always speak directly to the elector. Electors with low vision may wish to use a magnifying device, which makes text appear 4 times larger. We also provide ballot templates to help with reading the ballot.
Hello, may I help you?
I'm visually impaired, and I wondered if you had tablets for visually impaired people.
We have ballot templates which have Braille, raised numbers, and cutouts to help you identify who the candidates are. Will that help you?
Yes, it will.
Excellent. I'm just going to place this right in front of you, and I'm going to list off the candidates in order. Candidate number 1 is John Doe. Candidate number 2 is Jane Smith.
Okay.
Okay, would you like help to the voting screen?
Yes, I would, and I'll take your arm.
Okay. I'm just on your right side.
An elector who has a physical disability that prevents him or her from using a regular ballot may require use of the vote tabulator at the returning office or satellite office to create and mark a ballot. This device offers 3 alternative interfaces for allowing electors with physical disabilities to vote independently. First, an elector could use the audio-tactile interface, which resembles a video game controller with color-coded buttons that use Braille and contrasting shapes to help electors create and mark a ballot. An audio recording instructs the elector on its use. Second, an elector could use color-coded paddles, which are different shapes and are marked left and right. These paddles control navigation and allow electors to interact with the ballot. Finally, electors may require the vote tabulator's sip and puff capability, which navigates the ballot through a device controlled by the elector's mouth. Elections officials, whose duties include use of the vote tabulator, will receive training specific to these devices. Elections officials should be prepared to assist all electors, including those with disabilities, in the event of an emergency. For example, if a fire alarm goes off, do not assume that everyone will react appropriately. Electors who are hard of hearing may not detect it, and others may also need your assistance in determining where and how to evacuate the voting location. Electors with physical disabilities may also require your assistance, so make sure that you are familiar with your voting location's accessible emergency exits before the day begins. In some cases, electors may encounter difficulty in accessing their voting location on Election Day. Advance poll days allow all electors the opportunity to use our services ahead of Election Day. For electors with disabilities, this means fewer crowds to negotiate and increased convenience. Electors with other forms of disabilities, such as those with anxiety disorders, may prefer the calmer and quieter settings available at advance polls. Most voting locations will also place people at the doors ready to offer assistance if necessary. This could mean holding the door open or finding someone to help the elector to vote. In some cases, an elector can request to be transferred to another voting location that offers more convenient access within the same electoral district. This may be a voting location with a more accessible access route, with more than one entrance, with a wheelchair ramp, or any other features that increase its convenience for people with disabilities. If none of these alternatives is possible, An elector with a disability may use the special ballot process. The elector fills out an application to vote by special ballot. Upon application approval, a ballot can be mailed to the elector, and the elector can fill it out and mail it back. An elector can request that special ballot officers come to his or her home to assist with voting. However, home visits require that the following 3 conditions be met. The elector must reside in the electoral district. It is unreasonably difficult for him or her to get to the returning office or satellite office. He or she requires assistance to complete the special ballot application because of a disability, such as the inability to read or write. The special ballot process and advance poll days make voting possible for a large number of individuals across the province. Still, it's possible that an elector will experience difficulty using our services. It is important that we encourage feedback from the public in order to learn from their experiences and to constantly improve our standard of customer service. Elector feedback helps us to measure the quality of our customer service and to make immediate, tangible improvements to our practices and to the facilities we rent, where possible. Sometimes people with a disability may have to arrange for transit or for a support person to assist them. They may have to allow additional time for travel. Elections Ontario requires all of its voting locations to notify the public whenever its services are closed or disrupted for any reason. This notice must be posted in at least 2 ways, both in an obvious location at the site itself and in an easy-to-find place on the Elections Ontario website. According to the Accessibility Standards for Customer Service Regulation, this notice must state the reason for the disruption in service, the anticipated duration of the disruption, and where electors can go to access alternative services, if applicable. By learning from each other and maintaining an atmosphere of dignity, independence, integration, and equal opportunity across our network of voting districts, each one of us is helping to shape Ontario into a fully accessible province.
Everyone at Elections Ontario, from frontline poll workers to behind-the-scenes staff, has a role to play in delivering an election for the people of Ontario. Working in an election means that you'll be part of a 75,000-member Elections Ontario team. Together, we can make this the most inclusive and accessible election in Ontario's history. We're launching a new customer service model that takes everyone into account. You are now part of that Elections Ontario commitment to putting the needs of the elector first. It is our mission, it is our mandate, it is our responsibility. Together, we make voting easy.